Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshop. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. Before we get started with today's subject, we should check in with my assistant. There she is, Molly girl guarding the door. Yes. Oh, it's a rough life, isn't it, girl? A rough life. Yeah, just likes to have her belly rubbed. Nothing like a good belly rub, right, girl? All right, time to get to work. Today we're going to talk about glue. Glue is an essential part of woodworking. And the most common is just this plain old yellow glue. This brand is Titebond, and they sell different variations, but it's all the same kind of glue. It's called PVA glue, polyvinyl acetate, and that's the white glue, and yellow glues are all of that PVA glues. Titebond has got different levels. This is 2. It's sort of water resistant, and then they have even the Titebond 3 is even more water resistant. It's darker color than this. And then their original, which is just plain yellow glue, is the same as this. The white glue, I use the white glue because it dries clear. I'll use it a lot of times and mix it with sawdust, and it makes your own wood filler. As it dries clear, and it's going to end up being the color of the sawdust that you put in it. But it's actually a very acceptable glue. You don't have to get to the really fancy water resistant stuff. Originally, in the 1700s or earlier, they used hide glues, animal glues, and you can still get hide glue today. And the traditional hide glue comes in granules of different grades, and then you have to soak it and then heat it in a little glue pot, and then you brush it on, and it cools rapidly, and so you can glue something and you don't have to clamp it as much because it dries. It sets up as it cools, and today they've got liquid hide glues, which they've modified so that you don't have to have a glue pot, and so it makes it just easier. Comes in a container just like this. I don't happen to have. I just ran out, so I need to buy some. But you can get it in containers just like you can yellow glue, and use it just like yellow glue. And for furniture, I prefer to use the hide glue. Furniture, I don't know how to say this. The glue holds things together, but a successful piece of furniture is got precise, correct kind of joinery and tight fitting joinery. So the glue does not fulfill doesn't hold it together. The only thing that holds it together. The strength of the hide glue and the white glue is sufficient. It's stronger than the wood, especially if you have a tight fitting joint. The yellow glues, the more modern ones that are water resistant or water repellent, unless it's going to be outside. If it's going to be outside, it has to be waterproof, not water resistant. The other reason I like the hide glues, the liquid hide glue, is it doesn't set up quite as fast as the yellow glue. If you're doing a real complex setup, different things you're building up, you're gluing up a case, and you got a lot of things going on, this sets up too fast, and sometimes you can't get the joint all the way together because this is setting up, and it's you got more time to do that with the liquid hide glue. And the liquid hide glue is reversible. A little bit of heat and water, and you can get a joint apart again. If you've glued something backwards, with the original yellow glue and white glue, you can do that to a certain degree, but this water resistant and the type on 3 types, forget it. You're not going to get it apart. And in these, once they've fully cured, if it's like a week later, it's almost impossible to get it back apart without damaging everything. So I like the hide glues because it's reversible. It gives you a little more time for the setups, and it's been proven, right? I mean, they've got furniture from hundreds of years ago that used hide glues, and they're sufficient. I mean, they put veneer on with hide glues, and the veneer is still on, so they are more than sufficient for the task. Today, we've got some newer glues. The PVA glues came about in the middle of the 20th century. I don't remember the exact date. So they're relatively recent. But the new poly, what do I want to say? They're polyurethane. It's not really polyurethane, but it's a poly glue. This name brand is Gorilla Glue, but Gorilla Glue now sells even yellow glue and white glues. So, don't get the brands confused with the types of glues. If it says that you have to wet the surface before you use the glue, then it's a new poly glue, and it cures with the moisture. The yellow glues and the hide glue cure with the exposure to the air, but the poly glues, you need water, you need moisture, and it actually expands a little bit. It kind of foams. But you can get this in other brands. I mean, this is just one that I happen to have, and these are really good because they are 100% waterproof, and they glue about almost anything except some plastics. We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't like it so much for just the woodworking stuff. Again, it's not reversible, and it sets up a little too fast. But that's not. But if you got an outdoor project, and again, you've got to have some moisture. If you don't do it right, you won't have a successful joint with this either. And it has to be a tight-fitting joint. Even though it expands and foams out, the foam will fill the gap, but it won't have any strength in that foam. So that's that. Now the other kinds of glues that I would use are epoxies. You've got this kind here where you just got the epoxy in 2 different part A, part B type together. You just knead this with your fingers until it becomes a creamy color, and then you can push it in, and then it'll get very hard in a few minutes. You've also got, you can buy this kind in the syringe, and it's got 2, the A and the B parts here that mix. You have to mix them together, and this one dries and it gets hard in 5 minutes. You can get them as short as 1 minute. That's really good at gap filling. The epoxies are good at gap filling. So if you want, I'll use this liquid, more liquidy type epoxy, mix it with some sawdust, and fill knot holes. So that works really well for that. It gives strength to that whole knot so that it won't pop out on you later. So the different types of glue, it's a matter of what the application it's best at. Then you've got super glues. This is a gel, and this is more of a liquid. I use like the liquid if I've got a little sliver of something that's come out on a part of the workpiece that's going to show. I use this, just a little dab of this, and tape it down, and that secures that pretty well. The gel, if it's got a little bit more gaps or something, or if it's in a vertical surface, the gel doesn't drip like like the other kind. See, the other kind is this plastic resin glue is urea formaldehyde. It's a powder that you mix with water, and it's I think it's waterproof. It's excellent water resistance, not waterproof. What I use the plastic resin glue for is if you're making a curved piece and you're going to glue laminations together, 1/8 inch strips that you're going to, like a table apron, you're going to make a circle. In fact, I don't know if I see that form up there, but anyway, so you're going to glue all these strips together. If you use yellow glue or white glue, they have a little bit of give to them. It's called creep. So you put it over the form and you've clamped it and glued it, and when you take it off, it's going to tend to come back a little bit, so it won't be predictable. The polyurethane glues and the plastic resin glue doesn't have that creep. It's rock solid, so the way you have it in the form, and it'll stay that way. And the plastic resin glue, you've got more time to do all the gluing. Again, if you've got if you've got a dozen different strips that you're putting together, this dries too fast. You can't get it all the way down in there, so that the plastic resin glue works really well for that, for the bent laminations. What else we got? Then we got some specialty stuff. You got rubber cement. Plain old rubber cement works good on something that you want to be removable. And then spray adhesive, contact, basically contact. You're going to spray down a piece of paper onto material to cut a template out of. You just spray this and then you got a contact paper down. You can get contact cement. If you're going to put laminate on something bigger, you can actually use the yellow glue for that. But again, if it's too big of an area, things start setting up before you're ready. So that's why the contact cement, as you rub it, you put the contact cement on both surfaces, and then you got to put little rollers or some sticks underneath to keep them separate. And it gets tacky, then you have to, once it touches, it's not moving, so you have to be pretty accurate. And it's just like the name says, it glues on contact. The other thing you need to talk about on glues is shelf life. They don't put the dates on these. There is a code, and if you can go on the internet and you can get what the date code how to decipher that code into when it was manufactured. And they say 2 years shelf life. Shelf life means it's going to sit on the shelf and you can still use it within 2 years at any time. I personally, I mark them. See, I got this in April, and I just keep it for a year. If it starts getting thick and hard to get out of the bottle, get rid of it. It's gotten old. The polys, I think they say that's got a year shelf life, but again, if it should be liquidy. If it start getting thick, then get rid of it. These others, I don't really know, the plastic resin glue, since you don't mix it until you need it. I think that has a longer shelf life. And they tell you what there's open time and the clamping time. They're similar. It's how long you can have if you put it in a little cup and you're gluing it, the open time is how long it can sit there, and then how long you've got before you have to start clamping it. Like I said, this gets pretty short. With each level up on the Tite Bond, the shorter it gets. So I think that's about does it for glues. The important thing to remember for furniture making or woodworking in general is that you can't glue end grain to end grain, right? if you think of this as a stack of straws, the cells of the wood are like straws, and these are the ends of the straws. There's no surface there to try that. That's no strength to that, trying to glue that. If some people tell you to put some glue on there, let it soak in, then dry, and then that does not. The yellow glues and white glues, the PVA glues, typically don't stick to each other. I mean, if you're trying to repair a joint that's been glued with the yellow glue, it won't reattach itself to that old glue. You need to get rid of it all. Unlike the hide glues, liquid hide glues, they meld or mix with the old glue that's there. That's another benefit of if you have to repair something that's been glued with hide glue, you just put a little bit more hide glue in, and it will mix with the old glue and it become a unified surface again. So if you want to do end to end, you've got to have some sort of mechanical, on like a dovetail joint that goes on there, something to hold it mechanically because there's no strength. Going this way, long grain to long grain, is if you glue that with any of these, the yellow glues or the poly glues with plastic resin, the hide glues, that is a very strong joint, doesn't need any mechanical, that's stronger than the wood. If they're smooth surfaces and got a good contact. I mean, if it's really rough, obviously. This is also pretty strong, going cross, one cross, but there's a limit. If it gets too wide, the board is going to change in thickness this way more than it does the long way. So if you get a really wide board, that becomes significant, and it'll try to pop. It'll pop apart the joint. So there are some limitations of what you can glue, but mostly you want to glue joints. So you've got the mortise and tendon joint, and you glue that. If it's a good tight joint, doesn't need a lot of glue, and it'll really stick. I think that's about it for glues. Like I said, I like the hide glues, and I didn't mention shelf life on that's a little shorter. They say a year, but maybe 6 months would be more accurate. When you open 6 months from when you open the bottle, you get no control over how long it's been sitting on the shelf at the store. And again, you can if it gets too thick, that's time to get rid of it, or you can just use a test piece, see if it gets hard, that kind of a thing. Anyway, that's it for today. We're kind of getting to the point where we're going to start actually doing some projects or techniques, so that'll be coming up. Love you guys. We'll see you later.